Hey there, Patriots. It's Mickey again. How you doing? I am just so amazed at how multidimensional this movie really is. My research is taking me deep into not just the book of Revelation and the story of how this is the end times for them, the end times for the evil on this planet, but it's also, there are so many interesting Greek, Roman, Sumerian, Babylonian, and Egyptian mythology that's playing out in the stars. And the reason I think it's important is because they are, well, the Alliance, the key players, they're tweeting about this. They're posting it to their Telegram channels. They've been telling the stories. These are ancient stories that are playing out in the heavens above. And so my plan, and I've had a lot of people request that I do this, is to break down each story in separate videos. And so a lot of you have asked me to just give a summary of the story of Book of Revelation and how Trump was tweeting way back in 2013, actually even back in 2012, and how this is all so biblical and how it plays out precisely with the story of the Book of Revelation when you go back and you read it with 20/20 vision. But I'm also going to have to start breaking down a few more videos on the Trojan War, because that's another one that's playing out in the stars above, and that started in Gemini and it will end in Aquarius when they open the Trojan horse. Guess how many people are still alive? You know what I mean? How amazing is that going to be? So I have to tell the story of the Trojan War. I have to tell the story of Eros and Psyche, because that is a piece, it's a sculpture that Trump has in Trump Tower, and it's a big part of this story as it plays out, because there's an invisible man. There's also so much to tell you about Orion and Orion's original mythology and how they've recreated Orion all over the earth plane, and how that relates to Lepus, which is the rabbit just below Orion, and Canis Major. I also can't wait to tell you about the Mickey clock in the heavens, the Horologium constellation. I might dive into that a little bit today. What I'm trying to do is give you guys a summary of what's to come, because I want to give you an overview of all the stories that are playing out. Okay, so not only is there stories of Orion and his ultimate battle with the Taurus, which dates all the way back into Sumerian times, and it gets into Gargamesh, whom they recently dug up during the Iraq War, which is crazy. But okay, so then I can't wait to tell you also about Eridanus and the mythology behind Eridanus, and the Pantheon and the Phaethon, which was the name of the god that fell from the heavens, and then they actually named Pantheon after that god. So that's very interesting. I think we really should take a deep dive into that. There's also two centaurs in the heavens above. One has a bow, an arrow, and the other has the spear of destiny. One is shooting at Scorpio with 13 stars. Now I have some more theories on Scorpio. I actually think that's a good constellation in the heavens above, and that it might in fact represent the 13th tribe of Israel. And we may be taking that back and taking our history back, which means there's yet another constellation that's been hidden from us. So Ophiuchus, which is the healing constellation, the one that's battling the serpents in the heavens above, may actually have been the missing 13th constellation, because remember, each of the tribes of Israel were assigned to a different constellation. So I can't wait to tell you that story. And I can't wait to tell you about the centaurs in the heavens. So you've got Sagittarius, and then you have Centaurus. And Centaurus is poking the spear of destiny through the Lepus, which is another dog, and he's on his back. And so you've heard about all the dog comms, and we're going to make the Super Bowl look like a puppy show and all that. It all comes together, you guys. It's so crazy. I also want to give you, a short video on the rise of the Phoenix and the rise of the age of Aquarius, because there's a lot of gematria and mythology behind that as well. I'm looking forward to telling you the story of Pegasus and Andromeda and Perseus, which they're starting to drop now. If you go check out Whiplash 347 or Pandora's Box is a great group to follow on Telegram, as well as Q Patriots News. They're all dropping information on the stars and the constellations in the heavens. And I'm pretty sure you guys have all heard of Odin. So there's a whole story behind Odin as well. And you've heard Elon Musk talk about him. And then coming back to Pegasus, you've heard of Operation Pegasus, which is just now starting to drop. So all things good. These are all things good, but they'll give you better insight on where we are in the story as it unravels. I also have a few comments on the ending of the age of Pisces and the entering into the age of Aquarius. That's something I've also been researching lately. And I've got a few predictions for the month of August. I'm looking at not only deltas, big deltas that are coming up, but also the heavens and the stars and how it's looking between like August 11th through August 21st. So I'm really excited to kind of take deeper dives into each of these stories with you guys. But what I want to do first is I'm just going to give you a layout of the stars. I'm going to show you how everything is connected. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. Okay, so this is kind of just a really big view. When I talk about the story of Revelation, it starts in Gemini. Okay, that's kind of when the tribulation begins. And the story in Gemini is all about a man and a woman, a bride and a bridegroom, the Adam and the Eve, coming out of the bridegroom, coming out of his chamber to celebrate a champion to run the race, as it says in Psalm 19. And that is, the champion is Trump, because he's going to run a presidential race. And that whole story goes from Gemini into Cancer, into Leo. Of course, the main character is Virgo as she gives birth to Jupiter. And then it goes into Libra, Ophiuchus, and then Sagittarius as he draws his bow back. And then it ends in Capricorn, which is the end of the tribulation. And Saturn does a full retrograde in the sort of the triangle or the triad of Capricorn. And that is also a really fascinating story. So we are entering into the age of Aquarius. So Jupiter eventually makes its way into the solar plexus, or the belly laugh of Aquarius, because that's where we're going. We're going toward the mixing of the waters. Make me a little bigger here. So okay, so that's the first story I plan on telling you guys about. But the second story I really want to cover is the Trojan War, because this is another one where this is Pollux and Castor. They are both characters in the Trojan War. They are actually brothers and sons of Zeus, and they come up with a plan for how to win back Helen from Troy. So the king of Troy. And I'll tell that whole story, but that's really fascinating. It ends with the Trojan horse, which is opened, and they end up being victorious over their enemy. So imagine the Trojan horse as Jupiter enters into Aquarius and all of those famous people being made known. So Aquarius is 107 in gematria. Get rid of the 0 and you have our famous number. But you also have War Horse 107, Treasure 107, Currency 107. So we're entering into this golden age, the Golden Apple 107. And we'll get into that as well, because that all ties in to the story of the Battle of Troy. Okay, so another story I want to tell you about is Eros and Psyche, because Eros and Psyche are it's really the original Sleeping Beauty story. It's like, we're told to think of Snow White, but Eros is Cupid, and Cupid uses his arrow to make people fall in love with him. That's kind of the story. Well, in Trump Tower, he's got this sculpture called Eros and Psyche. So Psyche is our awareness, our, being awake or asleep, right? And Psyche ends up falling in love with an invisible man. And so there's a lot of us believe that JFK Jr., possibly Sr., are still alive. And so I want to tell you the story about this invisible man, because I do think it plays into what Trump is trying to tell us with his tweets, etc. I also really want to tell the story of Orion, because Orion is all over the Earth field. All over, they have literally recreated Orion's belt in the pyramids of Giza. There are pyramids in Mexico. There's locations in Arizona. There are obviously Tower 1, Tower 2, Building 7 is in the shape of Orion's belt. Rome and the Vatican is in the shape of Orion's belt. And they not only just create the 3 stars, they also call them the 3 wise men of Orion, but they also create, each of these locations are often either a city or a landmark. And in Rome, the club is the Olympic Coliseum, but they often have it next to a long river. So in Arizona, it's next to the Grand Canyon. And in Rome, it's the Tiber River. And in Egypt, it's the Nile River. And so this in the heavens above is called Eridanus. And also, I just want to point out, Lepus is just below the Orion. Now, many times on the Earth plane, this is your original white rabbit. The Lepus represents the rabbit, which represents children. So this is really vital in the story. And there's gematria, all of it ties in. But Eridanus is sort of this endless loop we've been in, the sea of souls, this difficult, challenging time of not knowing where we reincarnate and being caught in a loop on this earth plane. And I'll go into that more, but Eridanus has its own stories and dates back to Greek and Roman mythology around Phaethon, which sounds an awful lot like Pantheon. And they built on the earth plane the Pantheon as one of the stars in the shield in Rome. So I think it's this star right here. So I really want to tell the story about the Pantheon and the sundial and how that actually equates and dates back to ancient mythology. But if you look here at the end of Eridanus, you have the horologium. Now this horologium clock looks an awful lot like the Mickey clock. So let me just pull up an example. So in the earth plane, I've shown this in other videos, but on the earth plane, this is Rome. Okay, these are all the landmarks. This is your Taurus, this is the Orion, this is the club in the Olympic Center, this is the Pantheon and the obelisk in front of it. But you also have this river Tiber. And it flows all the way through, just like Eridanus. You can see how just like Eridanus, it flows through Rome. Well, down here on the earth plane, they also have a huge park. And there are some questionable areas there that I wonder if they were recreating the Lepus. But let's look at the horologium. Actually, I also want to point out here too that Junior has a dagger tattoo with a Z on the bottom. That looks an awful lot like Orion's dagger on his belt, literally. And it points to basically the end of this nefarious activity. So there's some theories I have on the Z. But remember, the Orion is always battling Taurus. Now, Taurus is our free will. It is our awareness, our knowledge, our understanding of our own higher self, our own ability to ascend. So it's always been a battle between Orion and the Taurus. It's been their battle, right? It's us becoming aware of the battle that they have been fighting. So Z is obviously the last letter of the alphabet. So think of the finisher, the punisher. Z also means lightning. Z could mean or stand for Zeus. And if you mirror that, it actually says Suez. We've seen that name, obviously. So that's interesting. I know Zeus plays a part in the mythology. I just haven't figured out yet if he's been used for good or bad. I know that the throne of Zeus was definitely something that's mentioned in Revelation. Z can also mean Zionist, or Z for Omega. So Omega is the last letter in the Greek alphabet. And just to bring this back to Revelation, it says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, says the Lord, who is, who was, and who is to come, the Almighty. Revelation chapter 1:8. I definitely think that this is the end of the party drug. This was his intention. This is what their mission was. It is the end of all things child 73, sacrifice 73. Okay, so on to the next. I wanted to talk about the Mickey clock in the heavens. So we have this horologium. Okay, now the horologium or pendulum clock, which is right here. It's kind of sideways right here, but you can see there's a pentagram at the bottom. So let's just take a closer look at this. The horologium is a pendulum clock with an upward facing pentagram at the bottom. Its name means the clock in Latin, and it's pointing at 10:08 in the constellation itself, whereas the Mickey clock appears to be pointing at the 10:10. However, the Mickey clock, there are 8 minutes highlighted, okay? So I believe it's kind of supposed to be pointing at the 08 and at the 10. Interesting that the pendulum is pointing to the Lepus at 6 o'clock. Follow the white rabbit. Remember, 6 o'clock could be dangerous. So right here, you see how the pendulum part is pointing down to the Lepus. Now, some have said that this Mickey clock means JFK. So you've got the J because the small hand's pointing at the 10. You've got the long hand pointing at the 2. So that's the K is 11. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. So there's your 2. And then the bottom pointing at the 6. So again, here you've got the whole horologium clock in the sky pointing at Lepus. So 6 o'clock can be dangerous. So you have J Now that's even more relevant in this com. Trump had posted an image a while back of his grandbabies holding these flags, and it kind of seemed like those were in the same position as the 10 and 2. Well, if you follow the flag, this here is an image of Niagara Falls. And if you follow the small hand in the stars, it takes you through the rise of the Phoenix, through the sculptors or the false idols and the false scholars, and into the age of Aquarius, or the mixing of the waters. So I find that really interesting. This seems to be a direct com. The other one is that her toe is pointing down. So JF, her toe is pointing down, which is down to the Lepus. I mean, why would her toe be forward if this wasn't a com, right? And then the other flag pointing up at George Washington. And this is really fascinating, guys. I'm going to actually show you another slide. This goes all the way through many important constellations in the sky that I think are directly important for this message. It goes through the Hydrus, up through the Triangulus Astrale. I think I'm saying that right. Hold on. I want to make sure I get that one right. The Triangulum Astrale. And then it goes up through the Spear of Destiny, which is the Centaurus, taking out the Lupus, which is a dog com, trust me, and then all the way into the Judgment, or Libra. So I think this is an absolute com, and I can't wait to dive deeper into the story and the mythology behind that. But another thing on the Mickey clock is that if you look at the Last Supper, you have this, some say this is Mary Magdalene, and she was actually holding a baby. This is it's not the original Last Supper painting, but I just wanted to use it for diagram purposes. So you kind of have this downward spear, the Spear of Destiny, or the heart shape between the two figures. But you also have this perspective on the Last Supper, where the downward triangle, or symbolism, there's a lot of symbolism there, words I can't use, is directly connecting to Jesus's head, or his halo. Okay. So the eye of the pyramid is downward, and it's supposed to be projecting upward. And you've got the same exact downward triangle on the Mickey clock with the two arms pointing. So I just thought that was all really interesting. And I can't wait to kind of dive deeper into those stories. But so we kind of covered Orion mythology and how we're going to dive deeper into that in future videos. But I also want to just show you who's surrounding Orion. Oops. So you have Canis Major and Sirius. And if you draw a line through Orion's belt, through Sirius, you will eventually end up over here at the Crux. The Crux constellation, which is representative of the crucifixion. And the Centaurus is protecting the Crux, which is, again, the cross. And just below that is the Musca. It's hard to read that. The Musca, which is the black fly. Do you guys remember when Hillary Clinton and Pence had the black fly on their head? And same thing with Obama. I think that was a com, because Musca is the same gematria as Gemini and Eros. So I'm looking forward to kind of, again, diving deeper into that. We also have this huge ship with one eye. Interesting. Definitely going to take some time to look into that. But so, okay, so the other characters around Orion, we have Monoceros, which they had said, unicorns, was brought up in drops, and then Canis Minor. Now, I know that in the pyramids, they had definitely had, especially in the Egyptian pyramids, they definitely had stories about the relationship between Orion and Lepus. So again, I look forward to kind of doing a deep dive into that in a future video. Okay, so we talked about the rise of the Phoenix. We talked about the Mickey clock. We kind of talked about the Centaurs, but I'm looking forward to going into the story on the Centaurus, as well as the story of Sagittarius, because they play a huge part in this battle of the gods above. Sagittarius protecting the natural crown, whereas Ophiuchus is protecting us from the serpent, which is the original serpent in the story of Eden, in the Garden of Eden, and we're blocking him from getting to the Corona Borealis, or the gold crown. the bad reset versus the good reset, right? So anyway, Pegasus, this is another one that they're just now starting to get into, is just above Aquarius in the heavens. And he's kind of upside down here. It's hard for me to flip this over, but this is another huge, basically entry into heaven. So this is a whole other story I'm really looking forward to sharing, but he is directly connected to Andromeda. And there are stories that are directly connected to Perseus as well. So again, I'm going to do a whole breakdown on that on another video. But one more thing I look forward to diving into with you guys is we are entering into the age of Aquarius. So we originally, when the holy books were written like 6,000 years ago, the Taurus, we were in the age of the Taurus. And this was back when we had our free will. And there's been kind of a battle going on in the heavens as we went from the age of the Taurus into the age of the Aries and then into the age of the Pisces. And so I look forward to kind of breaking down what was going on in the age of the Pisces and how we kind of became so divided under the church age. And now how Aquarius is going to change everything, the age of Aquarius, so it's the whole song, right? It's the coming of the age of Aquarius. So I'm looking forward to kind of doing maybe a 10 or 15 minute deep dive into what that really means. What does it mean to be moving from Pisces into Aquarius? All right. So, and then last but not least, I do have some predictions. I will come back with those in another video. I just wanted to give you guys an overview of all these characters in the sky and all these mythology, stories coming up and how they're tweeting about them. It's not just about Revelation. It goes so much deeper. So I will, like I said, I will promise to start putting those videos out here in the next week. And I really appreciate you guys following me. Go ahead and like or share, and I'll catch you on the flip side. All right, y'all. Talk soon. Bye.